I'm gonna get rolling, and we'll let some of the latecomers kind of come in. So hope everyone's doing well today. I just want to take a minute or two just to give you my 2 cents on the subject of digital onboarding and really why I'm so excited about it. A lot of you guys know I'm kind of like a banking veteran here, been in this business a long time, and very excited about this new era that we're finally entering, this high-tech, high-touch era that finally is coming to fruition. We've been talking about this since the late 80s, and it only took us about 25 years, but finally we're getting it down. So I'm very excited about digital onboarding. So digital onboarding is one of the most effective, in my opinion, sales strategies a bank or credit union can deploy. And that's because it really does what we want it to do, and that's improve engagement, drive share of wallet, enhance retention, and at the end, ultimately, it drives the value of a relationship. And I'm a big believer on what I call R on R, which is return on relationship. Banks and credit unions have spoken for years about the benefit of nurturing relationships, but they really have failed to do that. And as we've entered this digital age, it's becoming quite a challenge for them. Sadly, today, the vast majority of onboarding is done via these traditional channels. I'll give you an example: the welcome kit or the matrix mailing. These are very analog based typically, with very little ROI associated with them. And they're kind of a churn and burn type of a thing. You get a list of your new customer base, you put out some direct mail, you put out an expensive package that's printed, it's got fulfillment wrapped around it, and you really don't know how well it does. And it also is left in the hands of the customer to take action. There's no systematic reminder typically. There's no what I call a marketing nudge. Those are components that in a digital environment are very, very important. So the traditional model doesn't take into effect that our customers today truly are in a digital world. And I think more importantly, the world now is very much a mobile first world. That's something that at Gizio is very important to us, and I know it's important to Ted as well. Now, unlike a lot of traditional cross-sell platforms, onboarding is actually an ongoing process. I mentioned before churn and burn, which I think is the typical welcome kit model. It just doesn't work these days. The digital onboard platform, in my opinion, is a communication gateway that ultimately becomes a long-term relationship driver. And it's tied to additional communication that moves the customer from the initial engagement stage to what I call the relationship stage, and ultimately, and I think most importantly, the loyalty stage. And those are the primary components of a consumer life cycle. If you look at your typical retail banking experience, you've got engagement, relationship, and loyalty. That's kind of the spectrum you want to follow. So anyway, enough about my thoughts. Let me tell you a little about our presenter today. His name is Ted Brown. Ironically, he went to Brown University. I don't think the university is named after him. I might be wrong. He lives in the Boston market. He's currently the CEO of Digital Onboarding Incorporated. The company was founded in 2015. They're a SaaS company, very much like Gizio, and they're dedicated to helping banking customers activate their financial services products. Now, he's got a really good experience and history around this. He was the VP of Sales at Andira. Many of you probably remember them. And ultimately, they were exited or purchased by Bottom Line. So he's been in the space for quite some time. And as a former sales guy, he kind of understands the value of constantly staying under the customer's nose or the member's nose in a very relevant manner. So with that in mind, I'm excited to introduce you to Ted. And Ted, I'm going to let you kind of take it over from here.
Thank you, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining. So the byline here, we use relationship acquisition 2.0, and purposely chose those words, relationship, because we've been talking for years about customer acquisition, worse account acquisition, and I really, to follow on to Brian's introduction to this, want to focus on the relationship, because that's how traditional depository banks and credit unions make money, is an active, profitable relationship, not on simply acquiring an account or opening an account. And so that's when we unpack the term onboarding. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, particularly in the financial services industry, but the relationship is key. So to frame some of this, a lot of people, when they think about onboarding, think about the transaction itself of opening an account, which is an important piece of the puzzle. There's a lot that goes into opening up a financial services product: KYC, AML, BSA, forms, compliance aspects to it. But it's the oft-forgotten other parts of customer onboarding that are really, really critical to actually helping the bank make money and positively impact the P&L. So I use this little graphic just to frame this a little bit further, where the left hand of the spectrum is often where many financial institutions are narrowly focused. A lot of the energy is how do we make it quicker, faster, easier for someone to complete the transaction of opening an account, a checking account. And there's a good amount of money in marketing, and there's good reasons to do that. Generally speaking, banks or credit unions spend about $300 in marketing just to get someone to come into the branch or go online to open an account, a product. And there are significant drip points, drop-off points during that small little funnel. But there's a big, big gap between opening an account and acquiring a relationship, a profitable relationship. And the studies and the data show that what happens within the first 60 to 120 days after a customer or an account is opened at a bank is make or break. Essentially, if someone hasn't activated and utilized their checking account within 60 to 120 days of opening it, they will never activate the product, and the bank or credit union will lose money on the relationship for as long as it sticks around. Roughly speaking, it ends up looking something like this number-wise at each individual bank and credit union. Varies depending on your market and a lot of other things. But generally speaking, it's about 45%, roughly half of checking account openers end up converting to a fully engaged, profitable relationship and positively impacting the financial institution's P&L. Roughly less than half, 44%, end up using the product. They don't truly convert the relationship and call that new institution their primary financial institution. So generally, the institution will make their money back on the acquisition costs. And then there's a whole segment of around 10%, higher in a lot of other instances, of accounts that are open and never activated at all. They don't get ongoing payments, funding into that account, direct deposits. They're not engaging with the product, and it actually ends up losing money for the bank, negatively impacting the P&L for as long as that sticks around. So that's one of the big gaps that we need a better process for solving for. After we've gotten someone to the title of this webinar, to the 5-yard line, we can't call it a touchdown. When someone opens an account, we haven't scored any points. We really need a goal line play to convert that account opener into a fully engaged, profitable relationship, and that first 60 days is critical to accomplishing that goal. So generally speaking, we recognize that this is a gap. 80% of bank executives are not satisfied with the current process in place for customer onboarding. It exists, it currently has a lot to do with paper. Brian talked about the welcome kits and the direct mail campaigns. They're still pervasive amongst most financial institutions, and also a lot of phone calls. That's the typical playbook. But there's something not working about that traditional playbook of phone calls and direct mail to get someone to actively use the product. A quote from Digital Credit Union, a large credit union in the Boston area, their member onboarding process begins and ends with a 60-page welcome packet that they hand out or mail to the new member. And they hope for the best. Hope they come to the branch, hope they actually engage with the product. Obviously, there's a better way to do this. How it looks industry-wide, about 45% of financial institutions have no follow-up process at all after a new account is opened. So it's in the boat of hand out the packet of brochures and hope for the best. 55% have implemented some type of follow-up program after the account's opened, but only 20% describe that program as successful or very successful. So there is room for improvement. There's room to think about the problem differently and try to solve for this critical problem. The studies show that contacting and follow-up early and often is key. 5 times or more, 5 touch points or more after an account is open is going to lead to the highest customer satisfaction. But very few institutions actually achieve that optimal cadence of having those touch points and following up after each account is open. If you look at the type of methods currently deployed for a traditional onboarding process, in-person is always the best. It's great, but as Brian led into, we're in a digital world. It's not always the case that someone's face-to-face with you. So take that one out of the mix. It's the 3-headed horseman of email, direct mail, and phone calls. This is still our go-to form of onboarding in our industry. But when you look at the flip side of direct mail and phone calls, they are the least effective of the methods and also the most expensive and hardest to scale once you're doing significant volume. So our approach, and we'll dig deeper into the demo and the platform itself, but a quick view is to take this process into the 21st century. As soon as an account is opened, whatever the product type is, a new auto loan, a new checking account, a small business account, that individual gets an instant text message and or email linking to a customized digital journey that will stay with that account opener and walk them step by step through all of the tasks required to activate that product and get the most out of the relationship with a financial institution. So things like downloading a mobile app can be done with a click of a button, and all of those touches can be tracked in a back-end console in a digital format so that you can test, optimize, and really hone in on this critical part of the customer acquisition funnel and figure out the secret sauce that works for your customer base and your organization. So that's the brief high-level view of the product, which we'll dig much deeper into. But before we do, just break down the 3 major components. One is that customer-facing digital journey. I make the analogy all the time to that packet of brochures, that welcome kit that I know everyone hands out. Everyone still does it like it's a habit. Well, it replaces that with a digital journey that is the way modern consumers expect to consume information and take actions. And a notification engine that would retarget and nudge that account opener further if they haven't taken any action. So day 3, if you haven't downloaded the mobile app yet, click this button and download the app. Give it a try. You get a new text message automatically. The second key component is the management reporting. So being able to track every touch during that process. Is it working? Do they open the link? How many steps do they get through? If I change the order of my onboarding guided journey, what does that do to results? If I switch out the content, the materials that I'm trying to get people behind the pin with. And then the third component is the flexibility of a system, critical to be able to implement it quickly, have it fit into any technical stack, whether you're using, regardless of the origination platform, the platform actually opening the product within your CRM system, your core system, a simple API to make this quick and easy to deploy so that we can get to solution quickly. The last framework for where this solution fits into the stack looks something like this. So there's a key gap in the customer acquisition funnel that many financial institutions are missing. We all know digital marketing, HubSpot, Eloqua, Marketo, Salesforce's Pardot, to drive traffic to the website. KPI focused around how much does it cost to get someone to start an application, come into the branch. Then there's another layer of that cake, which is the actual origination process. A lot of the systems that you're probably using are out there to automate the compliance, the risk components. The KPI for that is application completion rates. How many people start and finish an application? There's this key gap in onboarding, which we measure the KPI for is the 90-day post-account opening customer activation and attrition rates. That is how many people who open the account actually use the dang thing and become a customer. Many institutions skip that step and assume it goes right into banking, into systems like digital banking, online banking, GZO, PFM, but there's a key gap of people who are not getting over the line so that platforms like GZO can do the job, cross-sell, increase engagement, include down the road, increase wallet share. If you look at this from a priority perspective, within all the technology projects you could do, the 4x4 matrix you see on the right is our view on the magic box here. Is what is a quick win? What is a low effort solution that's going to derive the highest value for the organization? And that's where we view onboarding, meaning the first 60 to 120 days, being a great opportunity for banks and credit unions. It doesn't require a huge core integration project like digital banking. And it's extremely underserved at most banks. So just quickly syncing up with an API, you won't find another solution out there that is an API-based quick project and a quick win to convert those account openers into profitable relationships. If you just think about the effort put into filling the gaps of the actual getting people to the website to open the product, it's a very large project and difficult effort. But if you dig into your numbers of people who have already made a purchase decision to open the account, and if you look at the number of people who are then not going across that final 5 yards to use the product, that is a extremely low-hanging fruit that if you can do a better job, move the needle 1%, the positive impact to the bank or credit union's P&L is huge, and the level of incremental improvement over a typical traditional follow-up process, it's very, very big opportunity. So with that framework, I'd love to dig deeper into the product itself, which I'm sure that a lot of people are interested in. It's not exactly a secret, this problem that exists at a lot of banks and credit unions. So then, of course, the question, what do we do about it? As I mentioned, we think it's 2017. We know it's 2017. I think the process and the user experience should be 100% digital. So I mentioned the entry point for a solution like this, replacing that welcome kit packet of brochures. I want to talk about a couple different use cases because what you're trying to achieve differs based off the entry point for that new member or that new customer. In the intro, we talked about activating checking products. A checking product is typically seen as the core relationship account for that household. But the way to get to that can differ tremendously based off the starting point. So actually, the first use case I'll talk about is how Digital Credit Union in Boston is using the solution to improve engagement with auto loan openers. This is actually the number one thing that credit unions think of. And don't worry if the bank on the line, I'm going to do briefly the small business use case because credit unions, auto loans, mortgages, consumer products is the bread and butter. But people don't engage with an auto loan. It's not a relationship. Most auto loans are done in an indirect channel. Even when they are opened directly with the credit union, there's very small amount of engagement. So if you can get a percentage of people opening auto loans to then consider your credit union or your bank, it could be a big win. A lot of consumers, they don't even know the institution. They see it as an auto loan. They pay the loan, the first word they might get from the institution is a call from the collections officer because they haven't paid their bill. So that's the use case that I'll start off with. And that account opener buying their car, getting their auto loan financed by a banker or credit union. And the first thing they get as soon as that loan is approved is an instant text message and or email that links to a digital journey. So I'll pull up the mobile view. You'd get a text message, you have a text from your banker, whatever the verbiage you'd like, and it's a journey that you can click on to now help you utilize that auto loan. And yes, learn a little bit more about the institution who is financing this loan for you, and give consideration to switching over your primary financial institution relationship. So you can see this is what DCU's done. Thank you for your auto loan. Here's what you need to know about that. The experience is different on the desktop versus the mobile device. I'll just do them side by side, not to be too distracting. But you can see our experience here on the mobile device. We want you to log into online banking first. We want you to then download the mobile app to start engaging with that. Now we want you to open and activate a checking account by setting up direct deposits. So this is a very scalable way to get this type of message in front of every account opener where there's zero relationship and instant access to a personal banker to help you along this journey. So if you have any questions, click to call, click to email, click to book a meeting. We're engaging on a personal level with this person with very little effort. So if we continue through this journey and just point out some differences in the experience, logging into online banking, they've framed a piece of content, a video that they typically host on the YouTube channel about how to log into online banking, how to access that account. And then the next step in that journey is to actually link out to it and go through that process. If there's an enrollment step required, you'd link out to that enrollment step, or generally just drive them to getting behind that PIN. I should note that all of this is designed to be in front of the PIN. It's not another portal that you need another password for. Again, the gap we're filling is to get people behind the PIN so they start banking with you. Now, the next step in our journey is mobile banking. We want to make sure people are downloading the app, giving it a try, see how great the user experience is. So there's collateral material about that. And then there's also this really quick, easy way to download the app and start trying it. And we're not just delivering brochures digitally here. We're already on a digital device, so we can make it really easy to complete the action. On our desktop, you see here, we have a prompt to enter in your cell phone number. Send me the link. It's going to instantly text a link to the that you click on, and you'll download it from the iOS store, Android store, whichever phone or device you have. Obviously, when I get to that stage on my mobile device, it's not going to ask to send another text message. It just takes you to install that app, takes you to the store, and you're ready to go. So step by step, this is how we frame that journey. The final step here is to open a checking account. Your discounted auto loan rate as a strategy is going to go up if you don't open and activate this account. Here's how you do it. Call to action to the origination platform or the steps that you would go through to actually fulfill that request. Could be download this form, fill it out physically, walk into the branch, whatever your process is for that product type, we're going to guide the user through that process. And now, of course, we want to set it up, activate it with direct deposit. Here's the information you need for your HR department to get your paychecks delivered into it. Oh, and also, by the way, we can do it automatically for you if you'd like. Use this button to activate the product that they use called Click Switch to switch over payments and other things automatically. And then just some branded material about the institution's values. Again, in this use case, we're walking through if someone getting an auto loan, they often know nothing about the credit union or the bank. They just bought a car, and the auto loan happens to be financed by this institution. So an opportunity to share a little bit about the values, the information about the institution is a valuable opportunity. So that's one use case of taking an account opening scenario like an auto loan and converting that into a relationship where this brand is now in consideration when other life events happen, for refinancing a mortgage, switching primary checking relationships, so on and so forth. Now, in the back end, I want to show some of the advantages of doing everything digitally. It's not just less expensive than printing out a lot of paper brochures and mailing them. That adds up quickly. It's a line item. The paper actual print expenses for these brochures often is a line item that's forgotten in a bank's P&L because it's been there for 100 years. But it actually adds up quite quickly at large volumes when you're talking about retail banking. But aside from that, it's just better as well, because we can tell every click in the app. Did they open the link? Did they click on step 1, 2, 3, 4? And what I have on the screen now is that management reporting console, so you can see whether your campaigns are working. So you can filter by template. You create different templates, different journeys for a business checking account versus an auto loan. You can see how many have gone out the door, how many people opened those journey links, and how many steps they got through when it was opened. And this helps us optimize. The other critical part about optimizing a process is being able to move it quickly, change the steps quickly, try new steps, A/B test different journeys in different ways. So if we dive a little deeper into how this user experience that I showed off was created, it was created very quickly and very easily using what's on the screen now, which is our editor, and it's based off a series of widgets. So if I wanted to add content to a step, I'd hit the content link, and a series of widgets become available to frame a video, paste a link from a YouTube channel, Vimeo channel, Wistia, add content and captions about why you're doing what you're doing, and publish. Uploading documents, getting signatures on documents, delivering disclosures that have already been agreed to, just upload them to the system, framing sections of a web page. So you want to explain to a new customer relationship what a particular part of your website's for, what they would need to go there for. You just paste that link to that section of your website, write a caption, and publish it into the journey. Plain text and obviously cross-sell. So for just a quick example, that mobile download widget you saw, this function, really useful solution. Type in your number, I'll text you a link to download the mobile app. That was built by adding this widget, pasting a link to the Android store, the iOS store, Windows Phone store, got it, writing some copy, and clicking publish. It can be done in 10 seconds, and you're that quickly to solution that can now be tested and iterated. You can now move this around into any different order, into different journeys, into different experiences, and see what works, measure what works. Just a critical piece, overall concept of being able to make quick changes into the experience for your customers and test what ultimately works. The last part, and I did mention, is this API. So the platform's entirely API driven. Actually, before I go into the API, I'll talk about the nurturing cadence. So when I started, you saw a text message that came up on the user's device. Well, as soon as that you get that text, we built a very easy nurturing thread timeline where it's quick and easy to start nurturing that account opener automatically. So you can drop pins into this timeline that you see and set a conditional text message or email to remind an account opener to move forward with another step. Define what the text message will say. Say day 3, if no one has touched the product, send out another text message to remind them there's still steps to be completed. Set a condition and link. It includes a short link to the section of the journey that you'd like. So it could link to the next step that a user left off on. It could link to a specific section of that journey to help take an action. But a key here is being able to quickly, easy, and cost-effectively deploy that follow-up cadence and then change that follow-up cadence just by moving a pin on a slider so that you can ultimately test for that optimal cadence that works and do it in a cost-effective way that doesn't require a large process and a large marketing expense to set up a new cadence for that. The last piece is the API itself. So all of this is API driven. Creating the journey, sending the journey out, defining the cadence for that journey, which makes it a quick set it and forget it type of solution that will fit into your current process. But it also enables a number of other interesting ways to use this and engage with the client at different points during the consideration process. So that's the last piece in a new use case that we haven't actually showcased much. So the paint's still a little bit dry on this, but I know there's a number of banks on the call as well. I use the auto loan example specifically for credit unions because that is a bread and butter. But for banks, a lot of the bread and butter is really within small business and corporate accounts. And the consideration process and the onboarding experience is different for small business than it is for consumer retail relationship. Often the consideration process is much longer. There's more to the consideration process, like what is your technology, what's the cash management solution look like, does it integrate with QuickBooks, my accounting platform? So it's a different, longer experience with more decision makers involved. So what I have on the screen now is an example of starting the journey, the onboarding process from a landing page off a website. So for example, instead of a simple contact form, which most banks and credit unions have to reach out to a relationship manager in the small business context, entering in the name of the individual or the business, use our own, quick contact information, and start. So just with those 3 fields, it's going to grab the appropriate template from that backend console that I showed you. It's going to generate a customized journey for this individual. If you look at the phone, I've received an instant text message that's entered me into a nurturing thread as soon as I started that process. It's labeled and branded for me, and it's instantly connected me with my assigned relationship manager, who can now help support me through the rest of this journey. So whereas the first example we said, the journey really began after the auto loan was booked. The user was in the car dealership, got their car, the journey began at that point. In this scenario, the journey is actually happening before the account's opened, during the consideration process. And based off this entry point, calling the API, it has chosen to start off with some collateral content about the system, cash management solutions, showing off the technology, then going into the account opening scenario, and then all of the information to now after the account's opened. We want to make sure you fund those accounts, avoid fees by continuing to put money into that, activating the debit card, returning any required documents that may be associated with that business account, getting access to download the mobile app, enrolling in online banking, adding credit, small business credit card, but then also getting people to put money on that credit card, all of those recurring expenses. So just another use case to showcase how flexible the platform can be and how easy it is to just in the back end reorder the steps, change the content around to now support an incredibly valuable use case of how do we automatically make sure that small business openers are properly enrolled in the right systems, differentiated from personal checking relationships, put into the fee-based systems that they ought to be in, such as payroll services or things that hook up with their account management, user permissioning, in a way that doesn't require a heavy amount of relationship management, so that these relationship managers can focus on credit-worthy businesses and other areas where they spend most of their time. So that's coming up on our time. I know we set some time for questions and answers, and I really did cover a lot of different use cases. But for a flexible tool, I promised myself I'd just keep it to 2 scenarios so that I don't confuse the situation too much, Brian.
Yep. Hey, Ted, I do have one question. Do you have any clients currently utilizing this solution other than digital?
Yes. So Belmont Savings Bank is live in production. They're doing this in their branches instead of handing out the packet of brochures. Digital Credit Union, again, their main use case is the auto loan scenario. And there are a few others that are not out to the gates yet. They're not using it with their customers, but they are using the tool and working towards getting out to their customers.
And I have one other question. What kind of roadblocks do you think you can help a bank or credit union marketer? There are a lot of bank and credit union marketers out there that want to do this, but there seems to be a resistance sometimes from the technology side to put this kind of effort in play. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do have thoughts on that, and it's actually been a big focus as we develop this tool. Often, everyone's too busy, and it ends up being a fact of the matter that we end up doing nothing because we're too busy to do something. So making something quick to deploy and configure is a critical part for how we develop this platform. Because otherwise, you get stacked up against all the other things you could be spending your time on. The other way that people are trying to solve this problem is implementing marketing automation platforms.
Right.
Those are big projects. They take months. They cost tens of thousands of dollars. And as a result, they often get deprioritized for other things.
Right.
So if you could get to solution quickly, you can really realize a big benefit with a set it and forget it, quickly get out to solution, and then test and optimize. So that was a big focus for us when we built the tool, and I think a big barrier to why there is a gap in the industry. The gap is as large as it is simply the mental energy and the time it would otherwise take to really incorporate a process.
Now, David's got a question that's interesting. So how does a bank offer this kind of capability if at present they can't open accounts online?
Oh, it's simple. So, this example I was showing you here is just a landing page that would go on top of whatever your current landing page is. And one of the steps in that journey is to open the account. Now, they could download a form, mail it in, print it in, come into the branch. Obviously, it would be great if every product could be opened digitally. I think Digital Credit Union may be the only traditional financial institution that 100% of accounts can be opened digitally. You name me a bank, I'm sure there's a product type that can't be opened, online or digitally, and that's important to get there. But if you look at the data, almost the majority of accounts are opened in the branch still today. So regardless of how the product's being opened, and I think that's a big point that I want to emphasize, is that onboarding is much more than the account opening process. That is a piece of a much larger puzzle. So whether you're guiding them to visit you and come into the branch, that's actually a good opportunity to build a better relationship. You'd be guiding them through that process. Download the form, visit our branch. It's still a quick and easy way to improve and get a large incremental benefit over likely your current process if you're not supporting a digital account opening process today.
Great. One last question. Can this work with a combination of text and email, since a lot of customers, or at least some customers, are not very accepting of the use of text?
Yeah, so it's an opt-in thing. You'd have to opt into the text messages. If you didn't opt in, you wouldn't get the text, you'd get the emails. So the email open rates are they're lower than the text open rates.
Right.
But that's where it's kind of called a belt and suspenders. You plan for nudging people forward with text, but if that doesn't work, communicate it through email. And a lot of people are sending emails currently. That's the number one sort of contact method. Adding an additional layer of text can definitely drive more engagement.
I actually got one more question I think is kind of important. What are the integration opportunities with an existing CRM or MCIF?
Yeah, so it's a critical integration point or a system. If a bank or credit union, a lot of bank or credit unions don't really have a single centralized CRM yet, but they're on a path to getting there. That is the hub for this spoke. Although many consider their core the hub for this spoke. Either way, this integrates with your hub in a couple ways. One is syncing contacts. So if there's any contact information entered in, say, that landing page I showed, that's instantly synced with your CRM or your core. And really having a centralized place to view the entire customer lifecycle funnel in the context of the overall CRM.
Great. Well, listen, we appreciate all the time today, Ted. It sounds like a real exciting product. I love the thinking. This is something the industry's been pondering for quite some time. So it's a huge opportunity to really make a difference and gives the banks and the credit unions a chance to compete in ways that they normally can't. Obviously, there's a share of wallet opportunity here that's rather tremendous. If anybody has questions for Ted, you can email me at bclaggett@gzio.com. I will get them to Ted. I think Ted also shared his email out there. You can also find me always on Twitter at Claggett. And once again, I appreciate your attentiveness and thank you very much for your support. Have a great day.